Rain hissed against scorched earth as thunder cracked across the empty plains. The storm had rolled in from the west, swallowing the horizon in a gray wall of fury. Lightning split the sky and for an instant illuminated a figure walking down the center of an abandoned farm road. Tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a tattered combat coat that clung to him like a shadow. Mud clung to his boots, blood streaked across his face, but his eyes, hard and precise, burned with purpose. A black wolf padded beside him, silent, its fur slick with rain. The man's name was Aaron Cole, though to those who whispered about him across the broken remnants of civilization, he was something else. The Boogeyman. The storm was a good cover. It drowned the sound of drones and massed heat signatures. He preferred nights like this, when the world felt raw, unfiltered, honest. A faint hum vibrated in his earpiece, static mixed with fragments of desperate human voices. The resistance network was fracturing again, entire sectors going dark. The invaders were cleaning house. Aaron had seen it before. The pattern, the precision, the way the Seraphim erased life, as if redacting mistakes from history. He spat into the mud and kept walking. The wolf, Omen, glanced up at him once before returning its gaze forward. They had been together for 3 years, ever since Anchorage burned. Omen didn't speak, but in the silence, he was all the companionship Aaron needed. A flare of light in the distance, white, sterile, not lightning. Aaron ducked, signaling Omen down. Through the scope of his rifle, he saw a Seraphim scout gliding low above the fields, its metal wings humming faintly. They looked almost angelic from afar, but up close they were a nightmare of efficiency. Four-limbed constructs of biometal, faceless yet expressive in their cruelty. He waited for the wind to shift before taking the shot. The rifle coughed once, the sound buried beneath thunder. The drone convulsed midair and spiraled into the wheat, vanishing in a bloom of sparks. One less set of eyes. He rose and kept moving. There was no satisfaction, only necessity. Every bullet he fired had a matter. Humanity's ammunition reserves were drying up faster than hope. The few resistance enclaves that remained were scattered: Seattle, Denver, a few deep bunkers in the Appalachians. But communication was failing. The Seraphim were cutting the world into isolated pieces. Aaron had been avoiding contact, staying mobile, hitting patrols when he could. He learned the hard way that heroics got people killed. He was done being a symbol. But symbols had a way of returning whether he wanted them or not. As he reached the skeleton of an old grain silo, his wrist device blinked red. An incoming transmission. Encrypted, human-coded. He hesitated before accepting. The voice that broke through was shaky, young, a survivor. Boogeyman, if you're hearing this, we need... The message cut off in a burst of static. Then, faintly, another voice, metallic and cold, layered with distortion. Surrender your world. The age of flesh is over. Aaron stared into the rain. The Seraphim were hijacking human frequencies again, broadcasting their declarations like sermons. But something in him tightened, something that had been dormant since the last time he'd bled for this world. He turned on his transmitter, his voice low, measured, carrying the weight of someone who had already seen the end. Since you chose war, he said, let us show you how it's done. Then he killed the channel. He could already imagine the ripple that message would send. Somewhere in a bunker or ruined city, a soldier would hear it and remember what defiance sounded like. Somewhere, a frightened kid would whisper that the Boogeyman was real. The myth would crawl back into the collective mind of humanity. And myths, he knew, were dangerous weapons. Omen growled, ears pricking. Aaron followed the wolf's gaze to a broken farmhouse ahead. The lights flickered faintly, human, possibly. He advanced cautiously, scanning the perimeter. Inside, 3 survivors huddled near a dying fire. A woman with soot-blackened cheeks, a wounded man clutching his ribs, and a child no older than 12. They froze as he stepped inside, the doorway framing him like an apparition. The woman raised a rusted pistol. Don't, Aaron said quietly, lowering his hood. You'll just waste a shot. Recognition flickered in her eyes. You're... No names, he interrupted. You've got power? The man nodded weakly. For now. They pass overhead every night. We can't stay. Aaron scanned their setup. Maps spread across the floor, ration packs, a jury rig radio. Ordinary people playing soldier because no one else was left. He admired the audacity, even if it was suicidal. "Pack what you can carry," he said. "I'll cover you until sunrise. Then you move west, follow the transmission grid until you find a relay tower. Someone will be listening." The woman's voice trembled. "You think anyone's still out there?" Aaron didn't answer. He wasn't sure himself, but the truth wouldn't help them. He loaded a fresh magazine instead. The sound alone was comfort enough. Hours passed in silence. Outside, the storm eased, leaving the air thick and electric. Aaron sat near the window, watching lightning dance across the fields. Omen rested beside him, chest rising and falling in slow rhythm. The child approached timidly, clutching a piece of bread. "Is it true," he asked, "that you killed one of their ships with just one shot?" Aaron didn't look away from the window. "That's a story," he said. "But you're the boogeyman, right?" He sighed. "I'm a man who didn't die when he should have. That's all." The boy thought about that for a long moment before returning to his mother. Aaron stared into the dark again, the weight of his own legend pressing down like armor he couldn't take off. The boogeyman, the soldier who never stayed dead, the ghost who walked through wars and left silence behind. He hated the name, yet tonight, as the thunder rolled and the wolf stirred, he felt it fit again. A faint mechanical whir cut through the rain. His muscles tensed. He motioned for the survivors to stay low. Through the cracked window, a Seraphim patrol glided over the fields, scanning beams slicing through the stalks. They were close. He switched his rifle to single fire, adjusted for wind, and waited for the nearest one to cross the line of sight. When it did, he squeezed the trigger. The head exploded in a burst of blue-white light. Two more dropped before the others reacted. Omen lunged from the doorway, vanishing into the storm like a shadow with teeth. Screams of metal followed. When it was over, the rain fell heavier again, washing the wreckage into the mud. Aaron retrieved Omen, whose muzzle was streaked with alien fluid. The wolf's eyes glowed faintly in the gloom. The survivors stared at him in stunned silence. He didn't speak, just reloaded, checked his gear, and stepped back into the night. He didn't tell him goodbye. There wasn't time for that anymore. The war had begun again, whether humanity was ready or not. He felt it in his bones, in the pulse of the storm around him. Somewhere out there, the Seraphim would trace his message back to its source. They would come hunting. That was good. Let them. As dawn began to bleed into the horizon, Aaron and Omen walked along the road, lightning still flashing behind them. The wheat fields swayed, whispering like ghosts. He glanced once over his shoulder, where the farmhouse stood small against the rising light. Then he looked forward again. The world had chosen war. He would remind it what that meant. The dawn after the storm felt too quiet, the kind of silence that didn't belong to the living. Smoke drifted across the plains, thin and gray, rising from the wreckage of Seraphim scouts. Aaron Cole crouched beside one of the fallen machines, his gloved hand tracing the faint pulse of light still flickering inside its chest. The design fascinated him. Too perfect, too deliberate. It was the kind of precision that couldn't comprehend error. That was their weakness. Omen sniffed at the metal corpse and growled low. "Yeah," Aaron muttered, prying loose a shard of the alien core. "We're going to use you against your own kind." He tucked the fragment into his pack and started toward the west. He didn't need maps anymore. Instinct had replaced them. The old cities were gone, but their bones remained, and he knew where to find the marrow. Denver was a ruin, half buried beneath a Seraphim relay tower, but its underground rail tunnels were still intact. That was where humans gathered now. Out of sight, out of hope. Aaron's broadcast had reached them. Every step he took toward the mountains was guided by that whisper across broken frequencies. Boogeyman's alive. The fight's not over. By dusk, he found the entrance to an old subway line hidden beneath a collapsed overpass. The air inside was stale with rust and human breath. When he reached the platform, dozens of faces turned toward him. Ragged soldiers, scavengers, civilians who had traded everything for a chance at survival. One woman stepped forward, her arm wrapped in a crude sling, eyes sharp despite exhaustion. "We didn't think you were real," she said. "I'm real enough," Aaron replied. "Who's in charge?" She hesitated before gesturing toward a cluster of makeshift equipment. A tall man with cybernetic implants across his neck looked up from a holographic map. "Name's Ortega. Used to run logistics for the 5th Armored. Now I keep this circus alive." His gaze flicked to Omen. "You brought a dog to war?" Aaron ignored the comment. "I need comm access and a power source. I've got a plan." Ortega laughed without humor. "Everyone's got a plan. None of them end well. Mine will." Something in Aaron's tone stilled the room. The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. Ortega studied him, then gestured for him to continue. Aaron spread the alien shard on the table. It pulsed faintly, reacting to human proximity. "The Seraphim rely on central AI networks to maintain order," he explained. "Each unit links to a relay core that controls its logic stream. You take out the core, the rest collapse." "And where exactly is this core?" Ortega asked. "Beneath the relay tower in Denver. That's why we're here." A murmur rippled through the crowd. The woman with the sling stepped closer. "You're talking about the heart of their operations. No one goes near that place." "That's why they won't expect us to," Aaron said. "We're not going to attack it. We're going to infect it." Ortega frowned. "Infect?" Aaron connected a small device to the alien shard. The screen flickered with cascading code, symbols shifting like liquid. "Before Anchorage fell, I worked Black Ops for DARPA. We designed counter-algorithms for hostile AI. I still remember the framework. If I can piggyback our virus onto their network, we can make them see humanity as Seraphim. They'll turn on themselves." The silence that followed was electric. Ortega exhaled slowly. "That's suicide." "Probably," Aaron said, "but it'll buy us time." Omen barked once, as if in agreement. The sound broke the tension. Someone laughed nervously. For the first time in years, there was something like belief in the air. They worked through the night. The tunnels became a hive of motion. Engineers rewiring generators, medics stitching wounds, hackers decoding alien signals. Aaron moved among them, giving orders with quiet authority. He didn't smile, didn't rest, but something in his presence steadied the group. The myth had become flesh again, and flesh gave people courage. When dawn returned, the air smelled of oil and ozone. Ortega approached him, holding a crude headset. "We rigged the transmitters. Range is limited, but it'll reach the tower. Once you're in, you'll have maybe 5 minutes before they trace the signal. 5's all I need." Ortega hesitated, lowering his voice. "You really think this will work?" Aaron checked his rifle, his armor, the charge on his battery pack. "I don't think. I act. Thinking's what they do." As he turned to leave, the woman with the sling stopped him. "What happens if you fail?" Aaron glanced at Omen. "Then humanity gets one last good story." He climbed out of the tunnel and into the broken daylight. The wolf followed close behind, paused silent on cracked pavement. Denver's skyline loomed ahead, metal spires wrapped in vines of lightning, the relay tower pulsing like a heartbeat in the center. The Seraphim moved through the ruins in silent patrols, luminous against the dust. Aaron crouched behind an overturned transport and studied their formation. They were efficient but predictable, always maintaining perfect distance. He smirked. Predictability killed faster than bullets. He moved with surgical precision, shadow to shadow, dismantling sentries with quick, silent bursts. The AK's sound suppressor hissed like the breath of a ghost. Omen darted ahead, distracting sensors, herding enemies into kill zones. They were a symphony of instinct and training. Aaron felt the old rhythm returning, the pulse of war that dulled pain and made the world simple again. He reached the base of the tower by nightfall. The structure loomed above him, humming with alien resonance. At its center, a column of light spiraled upward into the clouds, carrying data across the global network. The core was inside that beam, buried beneath layers of defense. He attached the transmitter to his wrist, connected the shard, and began to climb. Each step earned. The tower's surface pulsed beneath his gloves, alive, almost breathing. Static whispered in his ears, voices and languages he didn't understand. He focused on the pattern, the rhythm. Above him, the storm returned, thunder shaking the air. It felt fitting. We're always found at stage in chaos. Halfway up, a Seraphim sentinel emerged from the shadows, wings unfolding with mechanical grace. Its face was a mirror of light, shifting symbols rippling across it like scripture. Human, it intoned, voice calm as rain. You persist in futility. Aaron raised his rifle. That's what we do best. The creature lunged. He fired, the impact driving it back, sparks scattering into the wind. They collided on the edge of the platform, metal screeching, gravity pulling. Omen leaped, jaws clamping onto the sentinel's arm, dragging it off balance. Together, they sent it tumbling into the storm below. Aaron pulled himself up, breathing hard, rain mixing with blood on his face. He touched Omen's head briefly. Good work. At the summit, the relay core pulsed like a living sun. He connected the device, the code streaming across his visor in frantic symbols. The virus began its work, threading through alien logic, rewriting perception itself. For a moment, the tower's light flickered, and he saw chaos unfold in the distance. Seraphim units turning on one another, beams of energy carving through their ranks. It was working, but alarms screamed, and the air thickened with electromagnetic static. They detected the breach. Aaron slammed the final key and ripped the transmitter free. The tower shuddered, cracks of light spidering through its frame. Omen barked, restless, sensing the collapse. Time to move, Aaron said, leaping from the platform as the structure exploded behind him. He hit the ground hard, rolling through mud and debris. The tower's top section split open, fire spilling into the storm. Seraphim drones spiraled out of control, crashing into the ruins below. For the first time since the invasion began, the sky was full of falling angels. Aaron stood, every muscle screaming, watching the wreckage burn. The virus wouldn't destroy them all. Not yet, but it had drawn blood. Humanity had proved it could fight. He looked at Omen, whose eyes reflected the flames. Requiem begins at dawn, he said softly. Behind him, the horizon pulsed with distant explosions. Ahead, the night waited, heavy with promise. The war had just turned. The night burned like a second sun over Denver. The Seraphim relay tower had fallen, its molten skeleton still bleeding light into the clouds. The storm carried the scent of metal and ozone, a reminder that even gods could bleed. Aaron Cole stood at the edge of the ruin, his silhouette etched in the fire's glow. Omen circled beside him, fur singed, limping slightly but still alert. The virus had spread faster than expected. Across the horizon, alien ships flickered erratically, their formations breaking, weapons misfiring. Chaos, beautiful human chaos, was taking root inside their perfect machine. He watched it for a moment, then turned away. Victory meant nothing if it didn't last. The Seraphim weren't dead, they were adapting. They would repair themselves, recalibrate, evolve past the infection. He knew this war wasn't over. The virus had bought time, but time was a currency humanity could no longer afford to waste. He touched his wrist device, opening a secure channel. The signal was weak, distorted by the electromagnetic storm. Ortega, he said, voice steady. Denver core's down. The virus is active. Static answered first, then a faint, exhausted voice. We see it. The sky's lighting up all the way to Kansas. You did it. Aaron didn't respond right away. He could hear distant explosions through the comm, shouts, gunfire. The resistance wasn't celebrating, they were surviving. Listen carefully, he said. They'll come for the remaining relays. You gotta move the civilians underground, keep them off the grid. The virus won't protect you from retaliation. You're not coming back? Ortega asked. No, Aaron said simply. There's something I still have to finish. He ended the transmission and looked out toward the mountains. Somewhere beyond those peaks, the Seraphim's command vessel had landed. The source of their network, the mind that bound them together, the Ecliptarch. That was where this needed to end. Omen whined low, sensing the decision before Aaron spoke it. Yeah, he murmured, resting a hand on the wolf's neck. One last hunt. They traveled through the night, following the faint electromagnetic trails that cut through the sky like veins. The land had turned alien. Ash fields where forests once stood, rivers glowing faintly from radiation, cities swallowed by vines of glass and steel. Humanity had built a world worth saving, and now it was being consumed by its own reflection. Aaron moved silently, conserving his strength. Every step reminded him of the weight of years, the faces that haunted him, his unit, his family, the people he couldn't save. The Boogeyman was never meant to live long enough to carry regret, yet here he was, too stubborn to die, too empty to stop. By morning, they reached the foothills. The Seraphim command vessel loomed in the valley below, a dark crescent half buried in the earth. It pulsed with cold light, tendrils extending from its hull into the ground, siphoning power from the planet itself. Guarding it were dozens of Seraphim sentinels, their movements erratic, corrupted by the virus but still lethal. Aaron crouched behind a boulder, studying their patterns. They hesitated at intervals, as if questioning their own orders. That was the window he needed. He stripped his gear down to essentials: rifle, grenades, the last EMP charge. He ran a hand over Omen's flank. If I don't make it back, find the others. Led them away from this place. The wolf stared up at him, eyes bright and unblinking. Yeah, Aaron said with a faint smile. Didn't think you'd listen anyway. They moved together, shadows cutting through mist. The first sentinel didn't even have time to react before Aaron's blade pierced its core. The virus had weakened their coordination, turning them into fragments of a once flawless machine. He advanced methodically, using their confusion against them, dismantling perfection one piece at a time. Omen darted through the chaos, attacking weak points, pulling enemies into Aaron's line of fire. Each motion was precise, rehearsed, a dance between instinct and strategy. By the time they reached the hull entrance, the field was littered with burning fragments. The air shimmered with static. Aaron placed the EMP charge against the door and stepped back. The explosion ripped the entryway open, revealing a vast interior of mirrored corridors and pulsating conduits. The air inside was colder than night. Every surface seemed to breathe with quiet intelligence. He moved quickly, guided by the rhythmic pulse of energy deeper within. The core chamber waited at the heart of the vessel, a cathedral of light and shadow. There, suspended in a sphere of transparent alloy, floated the ecliptarch. Its form was almost human, but elongated, its body composed of fractal geometry that shifted with every breath. Its voice filled the chamber without sound, reverberating directly through his skull. You infect your cells with chaos, and you call it victory. Aaron leveled his rifle. We call it living. The ecliptarch's form rippled, studying him. You cannot destroy us. We are order. You are decay. When you fall, the universe will forget your noise. He fired. The bullet stopped midair, crushed by invisible pressure. The ecliptarch's energy surged, throwing him across the floor. His armor cracked against the wall. Omen lunged, teeth bared, and the creature turned a hand toward the wolf. A burst of white energy struck Omen mid-leap. The sound that followed was worse than any scream. Aaron's vision blurred, rage overtaking pain. He forced himself up, clutching the rifle like a lifeline. The ecliptarch tilted its head. Even your beasts die in vain. Aaron spat blood, his voice low and trembling. Maybe, but we don't die quiet. He pulled the alien shard from his pocket, the same one that carried the virus. The ecliptarch's glow dimmed slightly as it recognized the device. Aaron triggered the activation sequence, watching the code bloom across his visor. You build a perfect system, he said. You forgot perfection breaks easiest. The shard exploded with cascading light, tendrils of corrupted data flooding the chamber. The ecliptarch convulsed, its form fracturing into thousands of mirrored reflections. The entire vessel trembled, lights flickering. Aaron felt the pull of gravity shifting, the structure collapsing around him. He staggered to Omen's side. The wolf still breathed faintly, chest rising and falling with shallow rhythm. "You did good," he whispered. "Rest now." He lifted the rifle one last time, aiming at the Ecliptarch's flickering core. "Since you chose war," he said softly, "let us show you how it's done." The shot echoed like thunder. The core shattered and the light died. The explosion that followed was silent, a bloom of brilliance that consumed the valley. For an instant, everything was still. Then the shockwave tore outward, flattening the landscape, scattering alien debris like ashes. The Seraphim machines collapsed where they stood, their bodies twitching once before falling still. Across the world, their signals went dark. When the smoke cleared, there was nothing left at the crash site but scorched earth and fragments of twisted metal. The storm passed, leaving behind a pale morning sky. From the mountains, resistance scouts watched in disbelief as the alien lights vanished one by one. Ortega's voice broke through the static across every surviving frequency. "Boogeyman, come in. Do you copy? Cole, are you there?" No one answered. Weeks later, as humanity emerged from bunkers and shelters, they found the battlefield reclaimed by silence. Near the crater's edge, a single rifle lay half buried in ash. Beside it rested a black collar engraved with a single word, Omen. Someone placed it in a makeshift memorial among the ruins. The story spread quickly. The man who ended the war, the wolf who walked beside him, the message that had reignited the human spirit. Aaron Cole became a legend again, but this time it wasn't fear that defined him. It was defiance. The Boogeyman was no longer a monster in the dark. He was a reminder that humanity's strength had never come from perfection, but from the refusal to surrender. Months later, far beyond the solar system, a dormant Seraphim fragment stirred. Its sensors flickered to life, detecting faint human code embedded within its memory, a voice repeating endlessly across the void. "This is for every human who refused to kneel." And somewhere, in the endless night between stars, the echo of the Boogeyman's last promise lingered, daring the universe to try again.